Hey guys, welcome to Pages with Sidra. This is chapter 31 of Surviving as a Genius on Borrowed Time. If you haven't watched the previous chapters, make sure to check them out on my channel. Now, without any delay, let's dive into the chapter. Wei Muhyuk and Yunshin stood face to face. But Yunshin's gaze wasn't on him. His eyes were fixed beyond, past Wei Muhyuk, toward the tyrant sword sect leader. That sharply defined face remained as indifferent as before, like an unmoving mountain. Wei Muhyuk's expression twisted in anger. "You bastard! Where do you think you're looking?" With a shout, he lunged forward, sword flashing. His attack was relentless, a testament to his demonic sect origins. He cared little for whether his opponent was paying attention. Zeong. Wakak. A violent wave of energy erupted. The sheer force generated gusts of wind, rustling robes and shaking the ground. But when their swords clashed, they didn't move. Wei Muhyuk's smirk faltered. He had expected resistance. But not this. He pushed harder, but Yunshin's sword force remained unyielding. A moment later, he scoffed. Not bad. But Yunshin didn't reply. Now that he had truly mastered swordsmanship, he could see it clearly, the flow of his opponent's blade. And it was nothing special. A memory resurfaced. He recalled the first time Chong Myong had tested him when he entered Demon Wings. Slowly he spoke. "A swordsman I know once said, you can judge a person's potential by their sword wind." Wei Muhyuk frowned, confused. Huh. But Yunshin wasn't speaking to him. He was speaking to himself. Now that I've learned proper swordsmanship, I finally understand. His grip tightened. So that's what he meant. As he smiled, a sudden chill ran down Wei Muhyuk's arm. A premonition of death. Wei Muhyuk's lips parted in instinctive fear. What the? But before he could finish, Guanghua's sword style. Yunshin's blade absorbed the sunlight, then burst forth in a radiant beam of light. Flash. The force of the attack sent Wei Muhyuk's sword reeling back. What? But Yunshin didn't stop. Like the wind itself, his body vanished past Wei Muhyuk in a single step. A chilling silence followed. Then, a single clean stroke, slicing from the neck down. Wei Muhyuk's eyes widened. And then, his head fell. With a dull thud, the body collapsed. Yunshin didn't even look back. He simply sheathed his sword. Silence. For a moment, the battlefield was still. The only movement was Yunshin turning around. His eyes met the master of the tyrant sword sect. The man remained unmoved, his sword still planted in the ground. Not a flicker of emotion crossed his face. It was as if his disciple's death meant nothing. But Yunshin's gaze sharpened, and with deliberate movements, he mouthed the words, "I'll be taking one of your arms." Cheers erupted. Even the most composed masters and elders of the Zhongnan sect couldn't suppress their excitement. Some had witnessed Yunshin protecting Haya before, and now they saw his true strength. "Your nickname is Lightning Flash, isn't it? It suits you well." The Radiant sword style, such a profound name. Indeed, a magnificent sword technique. And terrifyingly powerful. To think, Wei Muhyuk was supposed to be one of the tyrant sword sect's rising stars. The Zhongnan sect stood in awe. Meanwhile, on the tyrant sword sect's side, a different reaction. A murmur rippled through the ranks. Though not yet a full-blown panic, they couldn't suppress their unease. Wei Muhyuk, one of their most promising talents, had been slain in just 2 moves. And his opponent was his peer. This is unheard of. How could Muhyuk not even resist? Then, a cold voice rang out. The tyrant sword sect leader finally spoke. "Kill them all." The tyrant sword sect leader's voice rang across the battlefield, his tone carrying an undeniable weight. His command, one that would tolerate no hesitation, no weakness, spread across the plains of Guangzhou. A suffocating wave of qi rolled forth, pressing down like an iron grip. Rumble. The ground trembled beneath the synchronized march of the tyrant sword sect's forces. A war had begun. Yunshin's radiant sword style had set everything into motion. The Zhongnan sect rose in turn, surging forward like rolling clouds, their masters moving to protect their vanguard. And then, battle erupted. Swords clashed. Qi waves roared. 2 great sections, one battlefield. Amidst chaos, Yunshin gritted his teeth, struggling to keep his focus in the midst of the storm. The overwhelming waves of qi crashing from all directions made even breathing difficult. For the first time, he understood. So this is what a battle among masters is really like. The distance between him and the tyrant sword sect seemed to disappear in the blink of an eye. And at the very front, boom, a single footstep sent a tremor across the battlefield. A man descended with immense force, his very presence shaking the air. His long beard fluttered as his powerful chi spread like an untamed storm. Yunshin's breath hitched. The old master's domineering aura left no doubt. He was on a completely different level. Then, you bastard. The elder's furious roar shattered the battlefield's noise. Yunshin instinctively gripped his sword tighter. His mind raced. This is not normal. He's not someone I can handle. At just a glance, it was obvious. This man was no ordinary master. He was a tyrant sword sect elder, a warrior who had spent decades refining his martial arts. A level far beyond Yunshin's current reach. Then, the elder's voice boomed again. I will kill you. Yunshin's thoughts flickered. Is he Wei Muhyok's grandfather? It made sense. His blazing eyes carried the grief of loss, but also the ruthless will of a demonic sect warrior. Mercy? It did not exist in his world. But Yunshin's gaze remained calm. Then he spoke. If you had taught him well, it wouldn't have ended in 2 moves. Crack. Like lightning striking dry earth. The elder's fury exploded. How dare you? A violent surge of killing intent erupted, bearing down like a falling mountain. The moment Yunshin prepared to counterattack, dashing away whoosh, a sudden gust of wind brushed past his robes. A shadow flashed by. The sword immortal of Zhongnan. Boom. The elder of the tyrant sword sect was blasted backward in an instant. An overwhelming chi wave burst forth from the sword immortal's palm, scattering the battlefield in a storm of force. As the dust settled, the sword immortal turned his gaze to Yunshin. Then he smirked. Thanks to you, I've gained this part of the battle. Seeking a worthy opponent. The war had truly begun. Yunshin's eyes darted left and right. Masters clashed. Sword light filled the battlefield. If he wanted to earn merits, he had to find an opponent he could handle. He scanned the battlefield, and soon he realized. There are many young warriors, restless and hungry for blood, rushed toward him without hesitation. His sword would answer them all. Yunshin kicked off to the side, narrowly dodging a blade aimed at his heart. You bastard. The tyrant sword sect disciples were already fixated on him. Their gazes burned with hatred and bloodlust. And it was no surprise. He had already drawn too much attention. Swords flashed. Footsteps thundered. The number of enemies rushing toward him was not small. But Yunshin's eyes remained steady. I can handle this. They were all young warriors. That meant they were hungry for glory, but still lacked experience. All around, the real war had begun. Elder-level and mid-level masters had already locked onto each other, their chi clashing like roaring storms. The battlefield belonged to them. And yet, one mistake, one slip, and disciples like Yunshin would be slaughtered in an instant. Dashing away whoosh. A wave of chi erupted as Yunshin activated the Zhong family dynamic training. His robes fluttered, radiating the power of his continued growth. Unlike before, he was not wearing his desolate fortress martial robes. He had chosen not to today, but if there was a second battle, he would. His blade would carry the full weight of his legacy. The first enemy to attack wielded a spear. His movements were sharp. The spear's blade gleamed with chi, brimming with deadly martial force. Far beyond the warriors of the Mantis sect, the spear shot forward. Clang! Yunshin's sword clashed against the rotating strike, severing its momentum. And in that instant of hesitation, shink! The dim light of the Radiant's sword style traced through the air. A single clean slash. The warrior's throat opened, blood spraying in an arc. 2. Yunshin exhaled slowly. He did not see his enemies as people. He saw numbers. Merits. Survival on the battlefield had no room for hesitation. No room for compassion. Clang. Splat. Dust swirled in the air. Swords gleamed. Yunshin moved without stopping, his focus unwavering. His upper dantian burned, radiating a powerful invisible light. It was as if he could see in all directions. A sword lashed out from behind. Ching! He deflected it instantly, countering with a single precise cut. Another head fell. The battlefield was his. The rhythm of battle became clearer. The instincts Yunshin had sharpened in the Mantis sect's hellish training surged within him. His movements were no longer reactionary. He was leading. Suddenly, the enemies changed tactics. Match the rhythm. Don't rush in recklessly. Watch his footwork. His footwork is too fast. The tyrant sword sect disciples finally realized. Yunshin's splendid wings step and radiant sword style were perfectly in sync. He was no longer just a young martial artist. Lightning flash of the demon wings. He was becoming something more. A complete warrior. A force to be reckoned with. And he wasn't alone. Shing. A blade flashed behind him, parrying an attack aimed at his blind spot. Haiyan Wenchong. His trusted ally stood beside him, covering his back. Together, the young disciples of the Zhongnan sect carved their names into history. Their swords did not stop spilling blood until the grand battle between the sects finally reached a lull. Yunshin has slain the tyrant sword sect's disciple in just 2 moves, igniting a war between the sects. Steel clashes. Chi storms erupt. And in the chaos, Yunshin proves himself. Against wave after wave of enemies, he carves a path with the Radiance sword style, each strike pushing him further toward mastery. But this war has only just begun. The Tyrant Sword sect's true monsters have yet to make their move. As blades cut through the battlefield, an elder of the Tyrant Sword sect steps forward, his killing intent piercing the air. Can Yunshin survive? Or will he finally face an opponent he cannot overcome? The next battle will test everything he has learned. Stay tuned for Chapter 32. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think will be Yunshin's greatest challenge? And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. See you in the next episode.